Hi, so we said VSCO is a tool that helps enable scientists to generate visualization more easily. So really what VSCO does is, I mean, if you think about visualization, you're transforming data into some kind of picture, graphic, something maybe that they can rotate or maybe it's static. The point being pictures worth 1,000 words, well, sometimes visualizations are not worth, petabytes of data. It's the analogy, a little thing I like to say. But to generate these visualizations usually requires a lot of knowledge about the domain of the data, what's the structure of the data, as well as the services that will actually do the transformation. Just when you think of visualization, think of transformation. That'll help you think about what these pipelines are. So what we have is a tool that will allow users to, it's an API right now. We do have some kind of a working interface, but I'd like to kind of scrap that. And I'd really like you guys to come out with something that's a little bit more approachable than what I have. But essentially what VSCO does is it knows about different web services that are out there. If you guys are familiar with web services, or think of it as a HTTP accessible function that you call. So there's a set of services that are out there, and they each do some little piece of a transformation. So it's up to VSCO to figure out, a user comes in and says, look, I want to be able to visualize my data in some format, so I want to be able to see it as some visualization Y. Please figure out how I can chain together different services to accomplish that transformation. Sometimes the transformation can be done with a single execution, so the data goes into one service and the output is the visualization, but oftentimes it's many different, the pipeline, so to speak, is composed of usually more than one service. You might have up to 2 or 5. I have some that I can go up to 6. So and if you think of a pipeline, think about a Unix type and filter architecture, where you have one operational component, it ingests data, it does some transformation, it outputs it, and then it feeds it into a following service, just like a Unix pipe. So VSCO is really automatically building these Unix pipes. But there's a few components that right now I've had difficulty having the users engage with. So they submit, I said that they submit what they want, what kind of visualization they want. They do that through a query. A little simple query language that I came up with, and I have the grammar on the web, very basic. The system takes that query, checks out what services are out there, figures out how can I satisfy that query, assembles a pipeline, executes it, generates visualization, presents it back to the user. The user has no way to save the visualization that they generated in the pipeline. There's really no way to share that well to other users, which is something that's interesting. Additionally, like I said, VSCO is piping together services that are on the web, but they may be down. There's really no way for the user to know that right now. They may submit a query, they may run the pipeline, something will fail, they have no idea what happened. We really want to be able to have this reporting mechanism back to users who do this. Finally, kind of the most challenging things I've had with VSCO is I said that VSCO knows how to assemble pipelines together automatically based on web services. That is backed by what we call a knowledge base. You can think of a knowledge base as a relational database, except rather than storing the data in the form of tables or relations, they're actually being stored and using some logical language with a set of axioms and rules. What's nice about this, you don't have to know, but I have an API that actually will take descriptions and transform them into the descriptions in the knowledge base, but still making a user interface that's accessible to a user to come in and say, look, I have this service, I'd like to register with VSCO. It does this, it ingests this format, it outputs this format, it works on this data type, it generates this visualization. To be able to describe that to the API and let the API do the transformation of that description into the knowledge base, I don't have a nice user interface for that. It's very inaccessible. Yes.
Was this the system that you were using here in the computer science house?
Yes. So there is a GUI there, but it's very rudimentary, and it doesn't have the capability that we need for people to really go out and start using it, because these little things. Exactly. Yeah. It's just a couple of web forms, very weak. But that's.
Are you going to demo anything or not?
I mean, I could demo, but you think that would?
Well, let's see if we have.
Okay.
Let me start off with some questions that came from the teams. So what you talk in your requirements definition about a privileged user. Can you describe what a privileged user is?
A privileged user, in my mind, I envision, so there's regular users that do submit the queries, they generate their visualizations. But I wanted the privileged user to be able to see what the normal users, I guess, I don't know what to call them exactly, but a regular user, be able to see their activity, have access to what visualizations are generating, maybe some statistics on what queries are failing. Because I really thought that this privileged user would be kind of the owner of the system, and would be able, based on these diagnostics, to be able to figure out, hey, I got 30% of the users that are executing this query and it's not satisfying. Well, what's going on here? Is it because the knowledge base is incomplete? Because some service is down? Is it because they're writing the query incorrectly?
So I think you answered the question of who determines privileged users. I mean, is there going to be a way in the system to identify who the privileged user is, or it's just going to be the owner?
It'll be the owner. I mean, that's
The one that sets up.
the one that sets up and installs the deployment is decided.
Do you foresee a need of a privileged user being able to set up other privileged users?
So I'm going to be asking the questions that came from the group, and so they're here, and then at the end, then I will ask if there's further questions. So we'll just hold on. So are privileged users expected to perform all tasks a user can perform, or are privileged users intended only for user management?
I see it for user management. If you want to go back to the role of a regular user, then you can log out or whatever.
Okay. Aside from registration and diagnostic roles of privileged users, are there any other tasks that they can be performing?
Privileged users.
Uh-huh.
Right now, that's all I have.
So is there a limit, I'm going to skip number 5, is there a limit of the number of privileged users that would be supported? Should there be functionality to add more privileged users?
I don't see that necessarily being really useful for the system right now. I just one is one.
So how many levels of user permission should be supported by the system? We talked about a privileged user and then just a regular user. Any other types of users?
I might want to think about that a little bit longer. I was thinking about maybe the capability of being able to share, and maybe there's this user that's somewhere in between that gets some of the access of a different user, but maybe not their full capabilities. But right now, I just see the two.
So what's the technical knowledge, the domain knowledge of the regular users?
The regular user will need domain knowledge about their data, definitely. So what I mean about their data is how is it structured in them. When you present VSCO with the data, you need to describe it in terms of its format and its data type. And if you guys want, we can get into this another time. But essentially, think of why you need both. Think of a format like XML. It's very flexible, right? XML, I can store trees, graphs, different kinds of networks. So you really need to say, look, it's an XML, but I'm describing a graph to really disambiguate what the data really is. So the user really needs to understand their data.
So I'm going to just follow up because when you have a privileged user, they're like, if you will, a super user.
Okay.
They're the ones that they have a particular domain that they're deploying this tool on, right? And then the users are the ones that are now using that data to visualize. But it's been defined, if you will, by the super user. Is that correct?
Well, the super user doesn't have,
Or the privileged user?
the privileged user doesn't really have control over that, but I guess I maybe not understanding that necessarily.
Well, I guess because you're talking about registration,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
Services. Regular users can register.
Yes.
It's not just the privileged user. Privileged user is just having access to
Yes.
how the system is being used
Yes.
as well as like.
So yeah, no, definitely a normal user can register services.
But it's all in the same domain. Are we all in the same domain? That's where I'm having trouble with that.
Domain,
Meaning I'm a geoscientist.
Oh.
I'm the privileged user. I launch this.
it can be any domain. It's not
It can
domain
be
specific.
Yes, but who's launching, who the privileged user is?
The privilege we go, okay, that's.
See, do you see what I'm saying? I mean,
Yes.
I'm launching it from the geoscience community, and I'm launching one from environmental science, and I'm launching one from another
That's interesting. I didn't think about that because I really didn't want, but, so to say that they have a domain and saying that there is a set of services and visualizations that may be more common to that domain, I don't know if that's the case, but right now I didn't see them being tied to any domain.
What security or privacy concerns are there with respect to transmitting or storing user information, or even logins or passwords? If you need a token, for instance, the password is a token.
Just the passwords on there aren't any, the system will not be storing any private information that you might think of, like account information, anything like that. It's pretty much just usage statistics, which, I mean, you can protect it, but it's not going to be detrimental to the user if somehow somebody broke in and found that.
What information about other users would be available to the privileged user?
I'd like them to know the queries that they're running, all diagnostic stuff, what's working, what failed, maybe time of access. Really just almost. I mean, I don't want to record at a keystroke level, but really to understand how they're using the system, how are they navigating between pages, or how long are they staying looking at a visualization. Things like this, understand their usage.
How many simultaneous users should most systems support?
Oh, well, I think it should be based on the limitations of the. I want this to run on the web, so it's going to be on a server. So I would base that on the load capabilities of the underlying server. I wouldn't really put restrictions on this code itself.
Is there a location where information is stored and level of access, state of access, services used? So is there, right now, do you have a place for it?
I envision this being stored in a regular relational database somewhere.
Okay, so that's it for the users group of questions. If you have other questions that you'd like to ask now, I'd like to rotate them on Teams. So if you have other questions about users, do you have any?
For the login, you mentioned the password, but it's also they get to collect your own username.
Yes.
Do you want it restricted to email address or username?
Oh, I think that's nice because then it's easy way to guarantee uniqueness. I'm sure.
You had mentioned that privileged users will be able to see everything. Do you want them to also see the model that was created as well? Or to save the model in a certain location so they can be super users as well?
Definitely. Just in case if something was generated strangely, or if a user complained, a user can go and actually look at the viz.
There's a question I have here.
So how are new users being added to the system? Does the privileged user to like review the requests, or do they email somebody, or how do they work?
I'm happy with the standard. They send back an email if you're there. It sends you an email. You click, yeah, I really am that person, and then you have an account. I don't really see a.
I mean, do you have an administrator, or is it just automatically done?
Automatically.
Whoever goes into the system with a valid email address.
Absolutely. That's
Get
fine.
access. Other questions?
Is there, talking about the interface with the user, is there any specific functionality you would want the users to have that's not mentioned before?
We're gonna get into services in a minute, so I think that will fall into that. Okay. Anything else? Yes.
Do all privileged users get all diagnoses from all users as well?
Yes, they should have access to all diagnostics.
Is there there can be more than one privilege user?
For one deployment of a system, no. Just seeing the deployer.
So that kind of goes back to my other question. So you're deploying it in an environment that could be, users have background from multiple domains. But it's one deployment.
Um, can users be like removed, banned in any way?
That's interesting. I believe so.
But then that would be the responsibility of the person who deployed the privileges.
Absolutely. Maybe look and see if they're misusing the system or.
Do you have a question? Anyone else have a question? Did you? Okay. We're gonna move on then to input and output. Can you describe the environment where VSCO will be used? And I think you have done that. Whatever team asks this question, do you feel like you need more information? What is the environment in which VSCO will be deployed? Did you need more information on that?
Well, can we just confirm? I don't know if there's our team, but, so VSCO is going to be running, so VSCO runs on the web server somewhere.
Yes.
And the interface is all going to be on the web too.
Absolutely.
And we're going to connect to this through a browser.
Yes.
Do you know what sort of operating system it's supposed to support? Is that
We're gonna
one
get to
question?
that in a minute.
Okay.
Okay, what type of data will users be entering into the interface? Will it be a mix of numbers, letters, and shapes, like in Adobe Photoshop? In Microsoft PowerPoint, was the input meant for one specific data type? Like the calculator application, strictly numbers and symbols?
Just numbers and symbols. When they specify their data to be visualized, I assume that it is on the web. That's a really big assumption there. The data is on the web and it has a unique identifier, the URL, that you feed to the system. It's up to VSCO to take that URL, dereference it, pull back the data, and do its transformation. So no image, yeah, just text.
Okay. What are the services, abstractions, viewers, and viewer sets stored? The visualization or saved is a pipeline stored as well.
Those descriptions of the different viewers, viewer sets, those are stored in the knowledge base. The pipelines, actually, they get synthesized during runtime, and then they die. I don't necessarily store them. Every time you run, it regenerate them. That's something that I may want to. I actually am thinking about maybe storing the pipelines or maybe storing the provenance about the execution, which I do, but I think maybe storing the pipeline may have some value added to the user. If they rerun a query, they don't have to go and query the knowledge base again. You can say, oh look, you're requesting a query that I already have a pipeline for that you built in the past. So I think the pipeline should be saved. I don't think it should be stored in the knowledge base. I think maybe that description should be stored in the relational database along with all the user information.
Now, teams, when you hear, sometimes questions generate new ideas, and we really need to document that, and we need to follow up and get affirmation that, after Dr. Novio has thought about it, whether yes, this is something I want to do, or no, so we know exactly what is a visualization?
Pipeline is, think back to a Unix Python filter. It's a sequence of operations. In these cases, they're web services. So a sequence of web services, and the data flows through each of the services in that sequence specified in the pipeline. Unix Python filter.
There are parameters associated with that? What are they?
There are parameters associated with each service that compose in the pipeline. And an interesting thing is, because the system is automatically generating these pipelines, there's no way really for the user beforehand to know what are the set of parameters that I'm going to need to populate until they get back to the pipeline, because it's associated with each service. Just think about a function. If I were to chain them together, each function has a different set of formal parameters. Those are the things that the user needs to specify.
What information can be accessed in the visualization generation? I want to talk a little bit about visualization. You're storing the visualization.
You store the resulting
The
visualization.
information is associated with the visualization. Right.
Yes, I have provenance information associated with the visualization in that was, how was the thing, provenance described, so how was the thing executed? So essentially it's a description, a brief description, some details of the pipeline that generated. That's the only information that I have linked to the visualization. So it said, look, this visualization was generated because you executed these set of services at this time. That's about it.
How do you envision users entering queries into the interface? Is it graphically or text?
Right now it's textually, but I really think that your construction queries, I mean, just the same way with SQL, you need to construct a query according to the schema of the underlying database. So the knowledge base has kind of a schema as well. So I really think that you should be able to compose them by drop downs as well for some of the fields. I want to be able to see it in Mozilla Fire. What are the set of viewers that the system knows about? There's a drop down. Oh, cool. I want to be able to see it in PDF. Why don't you click that? And while you're selecting from these drop downs and lists, it's building the textual query maybe in the back end. So both.
Should the text input editor have syntax highlighted?
Oh, that one, yes.
What question number is it?
That's question number 8. Question number 9. In what formats are the visualization produced?
That depends on the services that are actually being registered. So as users register more services that do different kinds of transformations, you're growing the space of possible formats and types that can be generated. So it's fully dependent on the knowledge base. So I think this, I don't know, some students kind of.
I'm sorry, Robert, can you speak a little louder?
Yeah, I'm sorry. And I guess maybe you can repeat the questions also to cover
Okay.
the audience, because sometimes
Okay, sure.
it doesn't pick up. So the question I just asked is question number 8. We asked about whether the text input editor should have syntax highlighting. Okay, I'm now on question number 9. And I think we've answered this. In what format are visualizations produced?
It's entirely dependent upon the knowledge base. And what the knowledge base knows is entirely dependent on the kinds of services that users have registered.
So number 10, what is the difference between a query and a pipeline?
A query is the best analogy is, let's go back to relational database. SQL, you submit SQL, it gets transformed into relational algebra sequence of operations. It's the same thing with Maya. They submit a query, it gets translated into a pipeline. So they're equivalent in forms of expressivity, but they're different. The query is declarative. The user is saying what I want. The system figures out, all right, now that I know what the user wants, I need to figure out how I can generate what the user wants. So they're equivalent, just one's declarative and one is a more procedural description. But users don't have to build pipelines, the system does.
Oh, okay, so that's what I was going to ask. Do you have a graphical interface to do the pipeline that then translates to the query, or you can do a query and it translates to the pipeline?
You do query, it translates the pipeline, not the
So
other.
it's not the way the other way around. Okay. I think you answered number 11, but we'll say it again. What happens to the pipeline once a query is created? You said it goes away.
It goes away, but I'll let you guys ask that question. I kind of think that it should live somewhere, maybe in the database.
So this is one of the, this is something that you pull out from the interview. And you'll see this in the interview template, that there are further questions that you need to ask and get clarification on. This would qualify for that. Should the users be able to replay queries from their history?
Oh, absolutely.
Regarding bullet 6 and the generation perspective of the requirements definition, what specific provenance information do you want? So, what kind of what you talked about storing provenance with visualizations? Can you be specific about what that would be?
That is the services that were actually compose the pipeline. So, and they live on the web, so I want to know their endpoint. I want the intermediate data that flow to the pipeline. It's all getting stored on the web, and they all have URLs. I'd like to be able to capture all those intermediate URLs. From the provenance, you should be able to replay, you should be able to reconstruct reconstruct the pipeline. So everything that you need to reconstruct the pipeline, the input data that the user specified, like I said, the services that were executed should be recorded. And specifically, so VSCO does, my current API does record the provenance. And it's really, but I don't have a way to really present this to the user. So that's one of the things that I was hoping you all would help me with. So what's a nice way to present this information to the user?
Okay. Do you need who requested the query or who created the query, the date it was created, the provenance?
Sure, yes.
Okay, so you want the username, date.
I hadn't thought of that before, but absolutely, that makes a lot of sense to have the little bit about the user, the name, the date, the query they submitted.
Number 14, which query languages are currently supported? Are there any thoughts of